Hi Vivid. I love your videos and I really enjoy just sitting and listening to them as I work. You have a great voice for narrating this stuff, and I can't wait to see what else you do in the future. I have a weeaboo horror tale myself, and I'd like to get it off my chest, as this has been haunting me, my closest friend, and her now husband for over 5 months since we completed our uni studies. Well shit, lay it on me! I'm going to keep this anon, as well, since I wouldn't be surprised if this psychopath finds this, and I don't want to put my best friend in danger after what happened to her. Just a fair warning, this story is pretty long, and I've cut out a lot of stuff that was a bit too chaotic and messy to explain, so I apologize for any errors or if this is hard to understand in places, as the entire situation itself is, for lack of a better term, hard to put on paper. I've also written down first-hand accounts from others that I did not experience, so I'm writing them as they've told me. My closest friend and I dubbed the story Yuri on Ice, and you'll see why after reading this. The place at our university. The main people involved are myself, my closest friend who I'll call Pixie, because that's the nickname I gave her since we had met as kids, and her now husband who I'll call Victor, as that's who I've known him to cosplay as the most, and the weeaboo we'll call Jay. A few other friends were involved, but for the sake of protecting them and keeping this story as unjumbled as I can, I'm going to leave them out. Anyway, the story begins with our return to uni after Christmas and New Year's break, where we had all separated to visit our families and generally enjoy the holidays before we returned to our studies. Pixie and I had already been attending for a few years, but this year the story takes place. Victor had enrolled to study in a course of digital art and design, to not only improve his own skills, but to help Pixie with any digital art she wanted to print on her designs. Now just a little background here before we get into this. Pixie is a fashion design artist, and a few years ago she traveled to Japan to experience the fashion culture and adapt it to her own style, as well as for her own designs in her uni courses. This is where she met Victor. Victor is a half Australian, half Japanese digital media artist, and he's a complete magnet for weeaboos. Seriously, he has long, dark, wavy hair, he cosplays, and he's ripped. You put him in a room full of weebs and he'll never make it out unmolested. Anyway, back to the story. All three met outside the main room to chat and pretty much catch up on what happened during our time away from school. We had arrived early, as we had stuff we needed to move into our dorms. Enter the weeb. We see a car pulling into the student parking lot and we think nothing of it, as others have already arrived what we did. Get a head start on unloading our stuff in. The next thing we see, her overweight arm opens the door and this absolute ham beast of a girl slides out of the car and waddles to the back to start unpacking her things to take them inside. She was dressed in simple clothing, or red flannelette jeans, and looked like they were struggling to contain one of her butt cheeks, never mind two, and a pair of sneakers that looked incredibly tight on her swollen feet. No obvious signs of weeb, and we weren't gonna judge. For all we knew, this girl could have a terminal illness, but looking back now, I see she was just lazy. She was struggling with a few boxes, and us being nice decided to help her. She seemed very nice and shy at first, especially towards Victor, probably because he was pretty much a shonen boy in real life. I swear her eyes did that little anime twinkle thing when he asked, "Hey, need any hand?" It took us a few hours, but we eventually got all her stuff upstairs and into her dorm room. And that's when the first sign happened. One of those boxes she was struggling with was completely packed with over 300 manga. No big deal, right? I've had plenty of friends who like manga just as much as they do comic books. But looking back, I wish I took this as the first warning sign to get the fuck out. We eventually left her to unpack, but instead of saying bye to all three of us, she only said, "Bye, Victor-sama," in a pathetic attempt to be a squeaky anime girl voice. We thought she helped him in his culture, but Pixie didn't say she just that she had a crush on him. The day goes fine. We unpack all our things. Pixie and Victor's room are both beside each other. They initially wanted to room together, but there was no apartments nearby with reasonable rent, and school dorms are only fit for one person's belongings. And my room is down the hall next to Jay. The entire afternoon, Pixie, Victor, and myself are just trying to put everything together and put a shelf from IKEA together. We can hear Victor shouting in both English and Japanese slurs at the instructions from a mile away. At some point we need a small screwdriver, and having one in my stuff, I decide to go to my belongings so I can grab it. On the way to my room, I can still hear Victor cursing in Japanese, and as I pass Jay's room, I swear I saw her swooning over his words. But my eyes were more focused on the absolute clusterfuck of posters splattered across her walls of anime. Just anime. I thought maybe she was just an otaku, or maybe she just really liked the art style. Heck, I enjoyed anime, but it wasn't to this level of fanaticism. A lot of her stuff was still packed up, and I had only had a few encounters with her. I didn't have enough to go on at that time. Anyway, I skedaddled past before she noticed me gawking at her anime wallpaper masterpiece, and I received the screwdriver and returned to Victor's room. The next few days were fine. We settled into our dorms, and we got to know the people around campus. For the most part, we didn't see Jay, as she pretty much stayed inside her room. We saw her in the girl showers a couple times, though it seemed she was only there to brush her teeth because she smelt like she never bathed. Every time we saw her, she was either in PJs or slavish-looking clothes, t-shirt with stains and holes, sweatpants that literally smelt of sweat, etc. It was only on Friday of the first week did she go from 0 to 60 on the weeaboo scale overnight. Now on the first day Friday of school year, at our uni, you can sign up for groups to be involved in for after-class activities. Basically, all the groups set up a table at the gym to display what's on the offer, and if you're interested, you can join. There are things like rugby, swimming, book, art, and yes, anime club. I signed myself up to the art and anime club. Pixie and Victor both signed up for the art and anime club, as well as the skating club, like roller skating, ice skating. It was a club sponsored by the local skating rink and council skate park, and Pixie and Victor both enjoyed skating, signed up. I wanted to too, but I'm afraid of skating. Not skating itself, but the falling down part. Me too. We're talking to each other in the middle of the gym hall, and then we hear, "Victor-sama!" And out of nowhere, Jay hugs onto him, nearly knocking him over. Seriously, if Victor wasn't so tall and fit, she would have knocked him to the ground. Jay is dressed up in a cheap Milano Lolita gear with a crappy Spirit of Halloween wig under a pair of cat felt ears that had obviously been hot glued together. Victor stood there looking very uncomfortable with Jay's sweaty arms around him. It was then we realized not only was she a weeb, but she had a crush on Victor. Victor, not wanting to cause an even bigger scene, gently nudged her off with his hands in his pockets. "Hey, Jay," he said simply before moving to the other side of me to avoid being side-tackled again. Jay attempted to be oh-so-kawaii anime giggle and smiled. "What clubs did you join?" I chimed in and said, "Anime club," and suddenly Jay cut me off. "I wasn't talking to you," she shouts. All three of us were appalled at Jay's sudden outburst, but Victor responded with, "Art club, anime club, and skating club. And you?" he said clearly, trying to give off an annoyed impression that the weeb just didn't pick up on. "Oh, how sugoi!" she shouted while standing on one foot, hugging her arms to her chest. "I'm in the anime and art club too. I can't wait to have the first meeting. You just have to show me your art. I bet it's so kawaii." At this point, I can see clearly that Victor is incredibly peeved at hearing his native language being butchered. Pixie clearly notices this as well, and pulled out her phone as if checking for something before tugging on his sleeve. "Victor, the custodian in your room is there to fix the patch on the wall," Pixie says, making up an excuse, and thank God she did. "Oh, yeah, hey, we gotta go, Jay. See you later, I guess." And with that, Victor, Pixie, and myself booked it out the gym and back to our floor of the building. A few more smaller incidents happened after that. Jay turning up at Victor's room at 9 a.m. wearing a skimpy anime schoolgirl outfit, holding a tray of cookies, saying that she'd made too many and wanted Victor to have them. Victor, not feeling safe taking food from this girl, politely declined, saying he was allergic to gluten, which wasn't actually a lie. Another incident included her purposely tripping over in the hallway and crying. Victor, of course, knew she faked it, but if he didn't help her up, he'd look like a complete asshole. As soon as he helped her up, she began pressing herself against him, saying, "Thank you so much, Victor-sama." And she leaned up to kiss him. As you can imagine, Victor immediately noped the fuck out of there and rushed off to his next class. The next incident threw poor Pixie into this mess, and happened the day before our first meeting of Anime Club. Jay banged on Victor's doors, tears pouring down her face as she shouted she had a bad dream. Victor opened the door tired, angry, and annoyed. "Then have a drink, calm down by yourself. My girlfriend is having an anxiety attack and needs me to comfort her," he shouted. As he closed the door, Jay must have caught a glimpse of Pixie on Victor's bed crying uncontrollably and hyperventilating, because Jay's reign of terror on her started the next day. The day after that, as said previously, was our first meeting of the Anime Club. It was pretty chill, and it was hosted outside in the school's garden, which wasn't that bad as everyone minus Jay liked outdoors. We were sitting at the lunch tables, myself on one side and Victor and Pixie on the other. Poor Pixie looked like absolute hell. I could tell without being told that she had an anxiety attack, as she looked so tired and pale even with her makeup on. She looked like the life had been sucked clean out of her after an attack, but she was still trying her hardest to be her usually bubbly self. The meeting had just started when the weeb joined us. She plopped herself beside me, and I swore I felt the wood seat under me bend and warp under her weight. And while we were all focusing on the meeting, she was making goo-goo eyes at Victor and staring at Pixie with a sour face whenever she spoke. At this point, Pixie had made a comment about an anime. I think it was Sword Art Online, but the anime quality was good and well drawn, but for story and character she felt it was lacking and could have been done much better, as well as giving out facts to back up her statements for both the anime's good and bad qualities. When Pixie was about halfway through her closing statement, Jay told her to shut her mouth and that she was a whale-bodied bitch who knew nothing about good anime. The club leader, as well as myself, Victor, and everyone else, called her on her rude behavior. She sat there and grumbled to herself quietly after the threat of being kicked out of the club came up. She asked Pixie to continue, but she shook her head and said, "No, it's fine." Now, Pixie is a fragile thing. She had been bullied her whole life. And when I say bullied, I don't mean name-calling. I mean physical violence, her tires being slashed on one occasion, having rocks thrown at her. She had been beaten up more times than she can count. When we met, she was quite curvy, but she was still pretty, sweet, and kind. Something I found interesting about her is that she had no trouble standing up for others being bullied, but she never stood up for herself. She truly believed, after all the years of being called fat, that she was huge and hid herself under baggy clothes, which only made her look bigger than she actually was. Unfortunately, through the years of torment, she suffers from severe anxiety, which can be triggered completely at random. I think Jay calling her a whale-bodied bitch really hit Pixie hard, and I still remember the sad look on my friend's face to this day. From then on, we tried to distance ourselves from Jay, but whenever Victor went, she would follow. Fast forward to mid-October. We had just finished our studies and our clubs for the day, and we were outside watching the leaves fall, drinking tea, and basically being as hipster as you can get. The anime Yuri on Ice had just come out, and Pixie, being both a fan of the show and a member of the skating club, was approached by the head of the anime club asking her to do the performance for the Christmas breakup party, which would be held at the skating rink. Basically, an end-of-the-year party, the school throws to say goodbye to everybody and wish them happy holidays. There's food, alcohol, and even gift exchange. Pixie was so happy to be offered a spot as their head performance. Jay, of course, found out and started bashing off the anime club's host about Pixie, saying, "How dare he choose her? She's too fat to figure skate. She's too fat to cosplay Yuri. She's too ugly. She's not even Asian. Why didn't you choose Victor-sama? He would make a great Victor." Oh, I can't pronounce his last name. I'm sorry. Well, unknown to anyone except me, Pixie herself, she had in fact lost a shit ton of weight over the years, and in that year alone she'd lost even more weight since she had took up skating as a daily activity. Fast forward to December 1st. Pixie's big performance had come. It was a mad dash to finish her costume, but it turned out great. She had chosen the black one Yuri wore for his later performances, and while it wasn't perfect, it was clearly Yuri. The party was great, music played, and everyone stood around the ice eating, drinking, laughing. The music stopped and the performances began, with the music club playing The Lion Sleeps Tonight, and the drama club performing with a lion puppet with a slight comedy routine that made us laugh. The comedy club had a few cringeworthy performances, but they were still good. Then came time for Pixie's performance. I hadn't seen her all day, nor had I seen Victor. That's when I saw them both enter onto the ice, first playing as well Victor, and Pixie looking like the real-life version of the pork kidlet bowl himself, Yuri. Victor had hugged Pixie before skating off to the ice on the sidelines. Everyone was pretty much silent except for a few people whispering things like, "Holy crap, is that Pixie?" When the music started, so did she, and the audience was completely captivated by her, and so was I. She messed up a lot on the moves, but she recovered well. She spun so much even I felt dizzy. When the end performance happened, the whole crowd erupted in cheers. Victor slid out into the ice and hugged her before they skated off to get changed. I looked to the sidelines and I could see the weeb look completely dumbfounded, trying to catch another glimpse as they slid off. The rest of the party went well. Everyone congratulated Pixie on her performance and her now newfound confidence in herself and her body. I think she finally believed herself that she was pretty. We were all having drinks as the party winded down, laughing and having a good time when Jay joined us saying, "Oh my god, Yuri-chan, your performance was so sugoi. You looked amazing." Pixie stared at her baffled. The whole year Jay had been nothing but rude to her, but now all of a sudden she's commenting on how amazing she was? Thanks? Pixie replied. I picked up on how uncomfortable she was, as did Victor, and we moved away from Jay to go talk to some other people, but she kept following us. This behavior kept up all until we left for Christmas break. Jay would follow us around, calling Pixie her sexy pork-cutlet beau and Yuri-san or Yuri-chan. Pixie and Victor went to spend the holidays at Pixie's family. I went back to my family. We kept in contact via Skype and text, and at some point Pixie commented how Jay kept on sending her friend requests, which she repeatedly ignored, and I don't blame her for. Then on Christmas morning, Pixie sent me a picture of a ring on her left hand. Victor had popped the question and she had said yes. So we had returned back to school after our holidays, and I of course was gushing over Pixie's ring and the wedding plans. It was going to be small, with her sister and myself being her only bridesmaids, so apart from catering and the priest, there wasn't a lot to plan. We were having a great time chatting and saying hi to all our friends, and we'd made the year prior, when she turned back up. One moment Pixie was standing beside Victor showing me the pictures of the dress she was in the process of getting fitted for, and the next moment she was on the ground crying, with Jay sprawled on top of her after giving her the glomp of the century. This is when I saw Victor snap. He grabbed Jay by her arms and threw her off Pixie before helping her up. Pixie had a huge scratch down her face with loose gravel embedded in her cheek, and her skin being peeled off in places and blood leaking over her foundation. No wonder she was crying. I myself had had enough too. I started screaming, shouting at Jay, calling her a fuckhead weeaboo cunt, and telling her to fuck off and leave us alone. To which Jay responded, "Calm your tits, you fucking dyke. I didn't mean to knock down my poor little Yuri-chan over like that." Victor was about to rip into her as well, but he was too focused on his crying fiancé to give a damn about Jay. So we just left her in the parking lot where we took Pixie to the nurse. After that incident, things seemed to quiet down. We obviously reported Jay to the school and she was told to keep away from us, but that didn't stop her. Pixie had a large patch over her cheek and couldn't go anywhere without looking behind her to see Jay somewhere in the background following her. Somehow Jay found out Victor and Pixie were getting married, and she wasn't having that. No, her Yuri-chan couldn't get married. She had to be her Yuri-chan or no one else's. And this is where this downhill spiral hits its climax. Pixie started returning to her dorm to find things either misplaced or gone completely. Underwear, socks from her drawer, a few drawings from her folders. Then one day she found her Yuri cosplay, the one she had used for her performance, was gone. She was of course upset and we all knew it was the weeb, but after banging on her door and trying the handle, we realized she might not be in. So Pixie decided she was going to confront her after her next class. Before class, she calls the custodian and asks him to replace the locks on her own door in case of a current one isn't working, as Jay is obviously sneaking in to steal her stuff, even though Pixie swore she had locked the doors, which she had. We later found out that Jay had somehow climbed over the railings and climbed into Pixie's window to get into her room. The next class goes by and Pixie returns to try Jay's door. It's unlocked, but the weeb is nowhere to be found. Sure enough, her Yuri cosplay is on the bed, as well as her underwear, her drawings, and on the wall were pictures of her in cosplay, as well as of cosplay. Pixie was of course mortified and grabbed her stuff and rushed back into her room, only to catch Jay in the act. She caught Jay, red-handed, picking through her closet, taking her belongings. Pixie screamed to the top of her lungs, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" Jay dropped the stuff she had in her hands. Most of it was Pixie's underwear, specifically her dirty underwear that she had clearly pulled out of the dirty laundry hamper. I just wanted to keep some of you with me, Yuri-chan. It's not fair you're marrying without giving me a chance to prove my love to you. But this time, myself, Victor, and a heap of other students all just stood there staring at this obviously nuts woman like, what the actual fuck? Pixie was finally snapping, spewing out every word imaginable, calling Jay out on everything she had done. Eventually, the school kicked Jay out for harassment and stalking of another student. At this point, no actual criminal charges had been placed by us. Jay was allowed to stay in school for one more night, but she was to move out the next day. When I went into my room to gather my things for my shower, I saw her packing her stuff up and I just thought, good riddance. What happens next still haunts me. If I had just invited Pixie to come and have an early shower and dinner to save her from doing it later that night, then maybe this would have never happened. I ended up having dinner and a bath early, and I went to bed early as well, since I felt pretty tired from the day's events. Pixie, though, had a late shower. She ended up trying to calm down as well as reorganize all the stuff Jay had been taking, including throwing out all the clothes she had touched. Pixie had her bath, did her teeth, and was packing her towels and toilettes away when she was stabbed with a pair of scissors in her left shoulder. She of course screamed very loudly and turned to see not only it was Jay, staring at her, very creepily. If I can't have you, if I can't have my Yuri-chan, then no one can. At this point, about 10 people at once ripped open the bathroom door and tackled Jay to the ground. Pixie was taken to the hospital, and thankfully her wound wasn't that deep and nothing was severed. Jay was arrested and was apparently being moved into psychiatric care to serve out her sentence. Pixie was a complete mess after this. None of us were really expecting to go forward with any of her plans, but she did, and last month her and Victor tied the knot. She told me she wasn't going to let the memory of Jay ruin her life. I still don't know what was wrong with Jay, but apparently she was on medication for something and stopped taking it. I still don't see that as any excuse for what she had done to my friends. Again, I'm sorry if this is messy, and believe me, there's a lot more stuff that I had to cut out and change to protect my friends. Putting this all on paper makes it sound like some shitty plot for some horror movie, and it's surreal to me to think that all this happened, but unfortunately it did. At least now Pixie and Victor are happy, safe, and that creep is behind bars. But Pixie is too afraid to skate again because of this, and that truly saddens me. She always looked so happy and free gliding around in the rink, and now it's something she fears. So yeah, that's the story. Sorry if it's so long, but I had to tell it. In case, God forbid, someone else is going through the same shit. I have 2 words for this. Holy shit! Hey guys, thanks for watching my video. If you want to see more similar content, feel free to click any of the videos that are on screen now, and don't forget to put a like because it really helps my channel a lot. And if you really like my video and my content, don't forget to hit subscribe as well as that little bell icon, because then that will help notify you for whenever I upload any other videos. Anyway, thanks for watching.